Breitbart 12 days ago that you have a vote, so what changed?
You know what's interesting to me? You were a reporter for CNN, correct?
Yes.
I just laid out to you a lot of allegations based upon the American public.
I'm just asking about your words. Why did you change your words?
Okay, well, let me answer your question, because I've answered it every single day, and you could answer me every single day. Nancy Pelosi changed the president of this House.
But that was
this doesn't preclude from a... Nancy Pelosi changed the president of this House on September 24th. It was withheld and good enough for every single Democrat here. It was good enough for the judge. Why would it have to be different today? What we've learned in the last couple weeks, wouldn't you want to know the answer to? Your whole job is reporting. You now have an accusation that the president took a bribe. You do know from your own reporting, from your own station, that they were selling a brand. You do know from your own reporting from CNN that the president went to and did conference calls, that the president went to lunches and dinners, just the dinners, and Hunter got a new Porsche. He got 3 points. But that's my question to you. Why don't you ask the other questions? Why don't you want to ask?
No, you don't. You never changed your position.
I never changed my position. You
told Breitbart 12 days ago.
You know what's interesting to me? So you don't care about any of the answers. You were very interested in the whole process. Yes.
Yeah, sure was difficult to get Kevin McCarthy to answer the very simple question, why did you change your position? Remember, only 12 days ago, Kevin McCarthy made the conscious decision to publish the following quote. According to Breitbart, to open an impeachment inquiry is a serious matter, and House Republicans would not take it lightly or use it for political purposes. The American people deserve to be heard on this matter through their elected representatives. That's why, if we move forward with an impeachment inquiry, it would occur through a vote on the floor of the people's House and not through a declaration by one person. Pretty clear words there by Kevin McCarthy. He made it pretty damn evident that an impeachment inquiry should not be decided by one person. And so it would make it all the more confounding, all the more egregious, all the more hypocritical when McCarthy then opted to do this.
That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. It's exactly what we want to know.
And that is Kevin McCarthy making the unilateral call to open an impeachment inquiry, just days after being quoted in Breitbart making the exact opposite point. And so I don't think it's an unfair question to ask what changed in all of a week since going on record with a position that then got completely flipped on its head. And here are just a few points worth discussing as far as McCarthy's response to CNN's Manu Raju. First off, he says this.
I just laid out to you a lot of allegations based upon the American public.
I'm just asking about your words. Why did you change your words?
That he just laid out a bunch of allegations against Joe Biden. First of all, that doesn't answer the question as to why Kevin McCarthy wasn't willing to bring the issue of a vote on the House floor. Second of all, the allegations here were made by him and Republicans. In other words, they made the allegations and then pointed to their own allegations as justification to impeach him. What they're missing in all of this is any actual evidence, which of course is obvious, and that's why Kevin McCarthy has to keep relying on accusations, which again, wouldn't even exist if he and his colleagues hadn't themselves created them out of whole cloth. McCarthy goes on to say this.
Nancy Pelosi changed the president of this House.
But
this doesn't preclude from a... Nancy Pelosi changed the president of this House on September 24th. It was withheld and good enough for every single Democrat here. It was good enough for the judge. Why would it have to be different today?
That Nancy Pelosi changed the precedent of the House when she unilaterally announced an impeachment inquiry against Trump in 2019. First of all, again, that does not answer Manu Raju's question as to why McCarthy changed his tune from 12 days ago to today. Second of all, what Pelosi did in 2019 was the same 12 days ago. Nothing has changed about Pelosi's actions when McCarthy gave that Breitbart quote. So why was his position 12 days ago that an impeachment inquiry requires a full vote of the people's House, but now, suddenly, with history still being what it was 4 years ago, did he decide to preclude a full vote of the people's House? And by the way, I should probably note too that Nancy Pelosi unilaterally declaring an impeachment inquiry in 2019 was perfectly sound as far as our institutions are concerned. But in 2020, the Trump-led Department of Justice adopted new Office of Legal Counsel guidance saying that an impeachment inquiry is not valid unless voted on by the full House. Meaning, while Pelosi was in the clear, thanks to Trump's own DOJ, it is McCarthy who's now running afoul of the rules set by his own party. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so incredibly pathetic. And finally, this from McCarthy.
You never change your position.
I never changed my position. You
told Breitbart 12 days ago.
Quote, I never changed my position, which totally checks out, except for the part where he changed his position. Again, all of 12 days ago, he gave this self-righteous proclamation against unilateral impeachment declarations, and then he literally just did a unilateral impeachment declaration. I'm not saying McCarthy is a shameless liar. I'm simply saying that he is incapable of telling the truth even when his own lies are presented directly to him. And look, the reason for McCarthy's lies is obvious. He needed to give something to his hostage takers in the House Freedom Caucus and the right wing of his own conference so that he wouldn't get hit with a motion to vacate and lose his speakership. And he knew that if he did bring an impeachment inquiry up for a full House vote, it would have failed. We've already had a raft of Republicans come forward and concede that this was too early because, for starters, there quite literally is no evidence of any high crimes or misdemeanors. Republicans have all the ingredients to impeach Joe Biden except for the reason to actually impeach him, which, I don't know, seems like kind of an important element in all of this. But reality has nothing to do with any of this. All that matters here is that Kevin McCarthy gets to keep his job because that's the only priority. And in order to do so, he has to kiss the ring of the people who are really in charge, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz. And if you don't believe me, watch this and tell me who's calling the shots in the Republican conference.
I rise today to serve notice. Mr. Speaker, you are out of compliance with the agreement that allowed you to assume this role. The path forward for the House of Representatives is to either bring you into immediate, total compliance or remove you pursuant to a motion to vacate the chair.
That is why Kevin McCarthy did what he did, because he is scared of losing his job. He is weak, he is ineffective, and he is impotent. And he would rather plunge the government into wholly unnecessary dysfunction, all because he needs the shallow validation that comes from having his nameplate on the Speaker's office. It is quite literally not possible to overestimate the effects of ego when it comes to the GOP. So at this point, House Republicans will continue this impeachment inquiry, but it won't actually amount to anything because, just like before this inquiry was announced, there is still no evidence of any wrongdoing. In fact, when Republicans trotted out their latest smoking gun witness, he forgot to bring an actual smoking gun, which Dan Goldman made abundantly clear.
He did describe that there were approximately 20 occasions over the course of their nearly decade-long business relationship where, when one of them called the other, that Hunter Biden would ask his father to say hello to whomever he was at dinner. He said there were some times when it was friends and sometimes when it was potential business partners or business partners. But the witness was unequivocal and stated very clearly that they never discussed any business on that phone conversations. There were niceties and there was a hello and we talked about the weather or whatever it was, but it was never any business. And I think it's really important to remember that during this time period that we're talking about here, Beau Biden, Hunter Biden's brother and President Biden's son, became very ill with cancer and died. That was in the spring of 2015. And the witness described in vivid detail about how devastating that was to both Hunter Biden and to Joe Biden, and how their communications picked up dramatically in the aftermath, because Joe Biden was calling his son to check on him, and Hunter Biden was calling his dad to check on him. It had nothing to do with business, and that is the sum and substance of what the testimony was.
And not for nothing, but if this was the best they could do when they were looking for a predicate for an impeachment inquiry before, something tells me it's not going to get much better now. And something also tells me that just like Kevin McCarthy couldn't help but flail when confronted with his own words, it's not going to get any easier for the weakest House Speaker in American history. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.